Alrighty, here we go. The final chapter in this Save the Crablet saga, this weird My Pal Crablet achievement that I've created, where I have to spawn a Crablet at the beginning of every level and carry it through the entire level, making sure that it doesn't die. If it dies, I have to restart the whole, level all over again, or whatever else like that. We've gone through quite a few levels here, but today we're going to tackle on from the Magma Gate level all the way until the final level. There's some bigger challenges in this one than I think I've ever faced so far in this challenge. A lot of the levels have been, basically easy, with the exception of stuff like Mine Dive, which are physically impossible because the Crablet just like despawns and gets disintegrated and stuff like that. But Magma Gate actually is surprisingly easy as long as you carry the Crablet above your head, as you can see in the footage that you're watching now. It pretty much will avoid all of the fireballs that get thrown at you and all of the attacks that get thrown your way as well. And as long as you, keep up a steady enough pace, they won't actually be able to destroy this thing. Magma Gate is honestly an extremely easy level. I've even beaten it as a pacifist before, so I didn't really think it would be too difficult, but I was a little bit worried that my Crablet would suffer some damage here. But it ended up surviving through the entire adventure here, this entire level. And so we were able to beat this one and move on to future levels. Now, of course, the Monogon motorway thing is super easy as well. All you have to do is just hold the Crablet and just walk through the whole thing. Super easy. Maybe I could have tried using the cart, but I don't think I would have been able to drive the cart while holding this thing above my head or anything like that. The only challenge in that level is the end when you have to climb up the cubes to press the button, but that's also pretty easy, especially since I didn't even think of this until just now, but I could have just switched to the tall avatar and just pressed it. I didn't even have to climb up there, but it is possible in that level, of course. And then we get into the main challenge of this section. I was actually just gonna end the video with just this next level, Pillar Climb, and just talk about it and just end the video there. But it actually ended up proving, easier than I thought, and it was still difficult, but I managed to do it nonetheless. This one is difficult because you have to do all of this parkour, climbing up the different platforms and stuff like that, getting to the top, and then you have to kill the orb at the top, all while holding this Crablet or setting it down in certain situations. Pretty much you can never set it down in the level because it never becomes blue because you're never actually getting that far away from your spawn point. If you guys don't know, when you spawn a Crablet, I guess the game kind of just remembers where it was spawned at or whatever. This is pretty much applies to almost any NPC, but especially the Crablets. If you spawn a Crablet and then carry it far enough away from where you spawned it at, it will turn blue. The red on its face will turn blue, and that basically means that it's no longer hostile. It's not going to really attack you anymore. It'll kind of wander around a little bit, and it will stare in one direction very creepily, but it pretty much just kind of stands there if you set it down. And so for a lot of this challenge, this has been an extremely helpful thing because when it turns blue, I know it's not going to start attacking me and accidentally suffer damage by attacking me and stuff like that. So Pillar Climb doesn't work like this because I'm going vertical, I'm going straight up, so I'm never actually getting that far away from its spawn point. And so for the entirety of Pillar Climb, I have to suffer the fact that this thing is just going to be red, and if I set it down, it might jump, and if it jumps, it's going to fall to the bottom and either despawn because it's gotten so far away from me, or just get destroyed. I've tried all kinds of things with this, but in the end, it just turned out to be as simple as coming up there, being fast enough to destroy the projectors up there. Well, not really the projectors, but the fire shooty boys, whatever you want to call them. I don't remember their names, but they shoot fireballs at you. Those things were a nightmare, but I figured that I could get up there fast enough, maybe either throw the Crablet down and run over there and kill it real quickly, and then run back or something. Even once I killed those things, it was still difficult because the next handful of climbs are just difficult enough with one hand as it is, but with one hand plus trying to make sure my Crablet survives, that is another layer of difficulty there. But once I was able to kill the projectors, I was able to do it the first try after that, so it was not as difficult as I actually anticipated it to be. Some of the comments I had previously in other videos doing this challenge, people had said that was going to be the hardest one or one of the most difficult ones, and I agree, it was definitely one of the most difficult ones, but it definitely wasn't the most difficult one. The most difficult one in the entire challenge here was the second before last level, where you have to go go on this huge journey fighting throughout the entire thing, and there's constant situations where you almost have to set the Crablet down in order to continue onwards and kill the mobs, and then pick your Crablet back up and then continue on from there. So anyway, this second before last level, Ascent, the first challenges come immediately when the level starts, where you have to take this jump pad up to the platform, you know, the area above you or whatever. I really wasn't sure this was going to be possible. I really was confident that my Crablet was going to die every single time I attempted it, and the first time I attempted it, it did just get disintegrated on some kind of weird barrier. Again, this is something I've noticed throughout doing this challenge, is that there's these weird barriers that the Crablets will just get disintegrated on if you carry them through, but sometimes they don't get disintegrated, and so there's an inconsistency there that I've noticed throughout a lot of, you know, these levels when it comes to that weird barrier. But after doing that, I was somehow able to surpass it. I'm still not sure how I did it to this day. Some of the times it died on the jump pad, and some of the times it didn't. I tried a couple things like spawning it in the corner and then, you know, going far enough away so that maybe it would turn blue, and then I could, you know, just kind of go up the jump pad and just chuck it, and maybe that would help it, or maybe if it was blue it wouldn't get disintegrated. I really wasn't sure what to try here, but for whatever reason I ended up surpassing it somehow. The main challenges came immediately after that, where I had to start moving these giant heavy balls into their keyholes so that I could open up doors and stuff like that. That's where the challenges really started to be difficult. I don't know how I managed to do it, but I did manage to go through basically all of these different steel giant balls or whatever, and put them in their keyholes and open up all the doors. In one of the instances, I pretty much, for most of the instances, I pretty much had to set the Crablet down because it was blue at this time, and I could set it down and then move the ball in place and then pick him back up, and so on and so on. So there was definitely some strategy there in regards of how to do it. I don't think this section would have been possible at all if he didn't turn blue, but he did, and so that was definitely helpful for me in this challenge. Obviously, right after that, the final ballroom that you have to go to, there's saws everywhere. There is the, you know, fire skeletons that shoot fireballs at you, and so these fireballs, like, even if they don't hit my Crablet, they might hit me, and it might be enough of a range of, you know, an area of effect that would still hurt my Crablet. So I need to be super careful there, and I somehow got past that too. And pretty much after that, there wasn't too many more difficulties in this level, except until we get to a certain section, which I'll explain in a moment. But the section right after that, you have to pretty much, again, kind of be super careful because there's a lot more ranged enemies. You kill them, you do your thing, and then right after that, you have to climb up this huge tower, basically, and then that's when the next kind of issue comes into play here, because there is more of these fire dudes that shoot fireballs at you, and it's kind of hard to get past them because, of course, they're up high and you can't really get rid of them where you're at. Eventually I was able to do it. I was able to kill them and get past it and everything like that, and the elevator floaty thing that's there, it kind of did something super weird, and it pretty much just didn't raise me up all the way that it was supposed to, and so my Crablet ended up dying there, and I had to restart that section of the level and everything like that. But after that, it was pretty much smoother sailing. I was able to get past that. The sewage part, I guess it's not really sewage, it's some weird green acid stuff, and there's a pool of acid there, and pretty much the only way to get across it is to use the dangly bits and the monkey bars to just go across. That's not really possible to do when you have, you know, a Crablet, so I didn't know what to do here, and so I thought maybe I could throw some barrels down in the acid and then walk across those barrels. I don't know if those barrels actually despawned or what happened. I do know that the boxes I threw in there got destroyed because I could hear it and I could see some of the particle effects, but I'm not really sure what happened to the barrels. I'm not sure if they were still in there or not, but ultimately I decided that, like, hey, how much damage do I take if I just stand in this for a few seconds? And so I tiptoed in it and then jumped back out and realized that since I'm the tall avatar, I'm not going to take as much damage. I can run across it, set my Crablet down, and climb up there and then get on to the next section. This is where things got a little bit weird because the sewer that you actually have to go into, because there is actually a sewer, like the little pipe thing, you have to switch to the tiny little cat dude and go into the sewers and stuff like that. For whatever reason, my Crablet would not fit through this hole. It died when I tried to go in there, and then when I actually managed to get in there with a Crablet, the pistons that push you up the hills killed my Crablet, no matter how many times I tried it, it would just kill your Crablet every single time. I don't think there was any possible way to do this section. But even then, when I did get to another section with another Crablet, because I decided to just spawn more in the sewers since I'm going to have to pretty much skip this section anyway because it's impossible, they would get disintegrated randomly at different sections as well. And so there's just so much that happens in the pipes here where you have to carry it with the cat that just makes this section of the level actually impossible, in my opinion. Is it actually impossible? I don't really know. If you guys can somehow manage to do this, I would be insanely impressed. But I really don't think it's possible. I think the piston is almost always going to kill your Crablet. There's too many of them that you have to go through. And then even at the end, the last piston, this has always been an issue for me, but for some reason the last piston that actually pushes you out of the grate at the end sometimes doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't actually push you far enough away, and so I had to do that like 50 times there. For some reason it just never pushes me all the way, and it just takes a lot of tries to do it. So even then the Crablet would have gotten hit by it like 50 times, and that would have just been a horrible experience. Overall, that little section of this level I think is actually impossible. But after that, the next big challenges comes into the form of like where more of these guys spawn. You pretty much get there like immediately after the pipes. You get past a handful of more enemies, and then there is more of the Omni projector dudes that shoot at everything that they can see, and so that becomes an issue because they might not shoot at me, they might shoot at my Crablet, and so pretty much this section isn't as hard as it seems. You pretty much just set your Crablet down, kill the Omni projector dudes, and then just carry on. And so that's pretty much what I did for the last handful bits of this level. And then finally we got into the final level of Home. The last level is actually, ironically, the easiest for this challenge because there's not much of a challenge here. Of course, there's tons of enemies, and there's all kinds of other ranged enemies too that shoot fireballs at you. These seem to be the most harmful enemies when it comes to this challenge, but pretty much this wasn't that difficult. I just turned into Tall, climbed up onto a rooftop, and then just skipped basically the entire level up to the bar fight. Ran past the bar fight, threw the person off the balcony, and then just broke through. And the final difficult part of this whole challenge was actually climbing the windmill. I remember I did this before where I did the one-handed challenge, where I was like, hey, I need to beat the whole game with one hand, and I got to the final bit with the windmill, and I actually thought the challenge was going to end there because it was so difficult to climb the windmill with one hand, but I managed to do it. And so in this challenge, when I went to do it, I actually ended up doing it on the first try, I guess because of how much experience I had with doing this before in the past with one hand. And so there you have it. I climb up there with the Crablet, and the final thing that it was going through my mind was, is this Crablet going to get disintegrated before it gets at the top? Is it going to despawn before I get to the top? Is it going to do some weird stupid thing like that? I'm really not sure. And so I just kept going, and eventually I got to the top. My Crablet was fine, he survived, and I was able to just as easily push the taxi, throw my Crablet in the taxi, and ride with the credits rolling with the Crablet by my side. This was a fun challenge, all things considered. There was definitely some hiccups here. I think the most difficult ones for you guys, I'm just going to tell you guys the most difficult ones that I had, the most difficult levels I had, in case you guys want to try this yourself. Ascent was definitely one of the hardest. Sprint Bridge was one of the hardest, and I think Pillar Climb was pretty difficult too. I think but my issue with Pillar Climb was that I needed to be a little bit slower than what I was. I ultimately ended up beating it by just switching to a different character instead of Tall, because Tall was so tall that he was clumsy basically, and I kept crashing into stuff. So those are probably the most difficult levels. And Mine Dive, I guess technically is the most difficult of them all because it's actually impossible. He just despawns and gets disintegrated randomly. So there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed this journey as much as I did. I hope you guys enjoyed watching all of this. If you did, I'd sure as heck appreciate you guys liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all of those things like that, because that just greatly helps out the channel a ton, and I obviously appreciate it a ton. So do all those things, and remember, most importantly, to stay asleep and stay wonderful. Just stay asleep. Just go to sleep.